Welcome back to Sportsbook Review. Right now, I am so excited to introduce our guest for today because this means it is finally NBA season. NBA analyst Jordan Sharp, thanks for being back with us.
Thanks, Megan. We were talking about it earlier. The weather is getting colder, which means it is time for basketball, and I agree. I'm 100% stoked as you are.
All right, yeah, Jordan, it's been a long, hot summer, but the season is just 4 short days away. Let's talk about this Western division here, the Western Conference, excuse me. Who's going to be the biggest threat in the West?
It's hard to bet against the San Antonio Spurs. I just think because they are kind of the flavor of the offseason, and I think until they prove that maybe they need a little more time to get things together, I think you have to look at them as not only the favorite to win the West, but the favorite to win everything. I mean, they beat LeBron James' Miami Heat a couple years ago without LaMarcus Aldridge, and now they have basically the same team back and hopefully healthy with LaMarcus Aldridge. It's really hard to go against them. You're still getting them at 2-1 to win the Western Conference. I mean, I can't see that line not going down, at least if we unless we start to see them falter early on in the season. I mean, they are the class right now. I really want to keep an eye on the Oklahoma City Thunder at 5-1, just because I think with Durant coming back and the additions they've made, they can also be a big threat. I'm not discounting the Warriors either, but I just think they might have a little bit of a championship hangover here. So I think the Spurs with a slight lean to the San Antonio Spurs here on this one.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Jordan. I think the Spurs are a great futures pick, but as far as the spread goes, it's really tough for me to make picks on the Spurs. But let's go ahead and move to a dark horse here in the conference, Jordan. I mean, last season, for example, Anthony Davis, he looked inhuman. Do you think the Pelicans could be a great dark horse again this year?
I'm not quite sure on the Pelicans just yet. I want to see it on the court with Alvin Gentry as the head coach. I think all signs point to them being potentially a contender, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to lump them in with the top 5-6 teams in the Western Conference just yet. Now, as an ATS bet, I think they actually could still hold some value, even though I think people are going to see them coming this year, and unlike they did last year, I think Davis is in for another huge year. I'm actually going a different direction. I think the Houston Rockets, for a team that got to the Western Conference Finals last season, are being very discounted in the future odds to win the Western Conference, considering they were only one series away. They come in at 10-1 at some shops right now. I still put them into that top 5 category here with the Spurs, the Warriors, the Thunder, and the Clippers, but they're not priced that way. So I think the Rockets could be a team that potentially, if everyone's healthy, like I said, the addition of Ty Lawson makes them a completely different basketball team because it takes a lot of the ball handling pressure off James Harden. So I think the Rockets at 10-1, probably my best future odds bet right now as a dark horse team, kind of that team that's outside the top tier of teams that absolutely has the ability to win the Western Conference this year.
All right, now, Jordan, we're a few days away from the season starting up on Tuesday. Who do you think is going to come out of the chute looking great in the first month?
When it comes to the Western Conference, that's an extremely difficult question because the Western Conference is a gauntlet, and I'm not sure if really any team is going to have a hot start. However, if I had to choose, I think possibly a team like the Thunder, like I just mentioned, or maybe even the Clippers as well. If they can get off to a hot start, I think that could propel them into being one of the championship contenders, at least Western Conference contenders in this one. Coming from, a little bit of down the odds boards a little bit, I really like the Utah Jazz. The loss of Dante Exum really hurts, but I still think they can be a pretty good basketball team as well. Team that not a lot of people see coming and could potentially have a really good ATS run to start the season. But in the Western Conference, man, that is one difficult question. For instance, for an example, I wrote down 3 or 4 teams for the answer to this question on the Eastern Conference, but it's really hard to come up with a Western Conference team on this one. Not sure what you think about the West and anybody who's going to come out hot against the spread-wise, but I'm kind of on a wait-and-see approach with the West right now.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a great approach when it comes to this particular conference. Now, this next question isn't completely about the Western Conference, but last season, it certainly could have changed the outlook of the Western Conference playoffs. The new rules that have just been instated here for the NBA state that the wins and losses will determine the seeding, and the tiebreakers will be head-to-head records when it comes to the playoffs this season. What do you think about that change, Jordan? Is it something that's going to be good for the league? How should we approach it as bettors?
I mean, the San Antonio Spurs probably want it to be implemented as of last year, or they wouldn't have gotten so screwed with their playoff seeding. But and really now divisions are meaningless except for divisional future odds. It's really the change at this point. But for the West, I think it's more important than the East because even though I think Portland is going to be well outside of the playoff race this year, you're looking at now records being the only thing that really matters, and head-to-head obviously coming into play as well. So I think it really helps teams in the stacked division division like the Southwest, you're talking about the Spurs, the Rockets, the Pelicans, and the Grizzlies. You look at those 4 teams, probably all 4 playoff teams in the West. Last year, that division sent 5 to the playoffs. So it really helps those 4 teams. Team like the Thunder, it kind of hurts because they're in not as great of a division, and it definitely helps the Clippers as well in a division with the Warriors. But still, it helps some teams. Doesn't really. It kind of keeps neutral on some teams. But overall, I think it's a very good thing for the game and for bettors as well. I think you're looking at potentially, a little bit less variance in your Western Conference future odds betting.
Now, very quickly here, Jordan, the Pelicans seed the Warriors for opening night on Tuesday. Who wins this game?
I think the Warriors will win it. I think that, however, though, once the odds come out, if the Pelicans are anywhere 8-9 points underdogs or higher, I think taking the points is probably a way to go on this one. The Pelicans played the Warriors very well, both against the spread and even straight up, despite the fact they got swept in the playoffs. I don't think that's changed, other than the fact that they've got Alvin Gentry, and that's going to be a huge boost for this team. They also just signed Nate Robinson to give them a little guard depth, because they obviously just lost Tyreek Evans for the first month of the season, and Drew Holiday's already on a minutes limit. But I think the Pelicans, with all that said, I think, like I said earlier in the call, I think the Warriors may have a little bit of a championship hangover here, and I think it starts, even though that game's at home, obviously, I think it starts in night 1. I think they win straight up, but I don't think that it's going to be very easy for them.
NBA analyst Jordan Sharp, thanks for joining us. Looking forward to another great season chatting hoops with you.